Well, 10 o'clock members, welcome to this meeting of the Audit Committee. A particular welcome to our friends from Dulson, not Adam, Asla, who's taken over from Grant Patterson, and Mary Wren, who we know well from previous meetings. Welcome to both of you. Particular welcome.
Morning.
Who is standing in for the Vice Chairman, who's unavailable, so what to say that is at the moment. We'll now crack on. Apologies for absence.
With repeating apologies from Councillor Simon Harris and Councillor Claire Wilde as substituting for him.
Disposable peculiar instruments. Members are reminded that they must declare their disposable peculiar instrument. Any peculiar interests to declare? No. Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting held on the 27th of June are now before you. I understand that Kate has an item she would wish to raise on the minutes.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just page 3, and it was about critical skill shortage for social workers. And it was just to ask whether that was included in the current risk assessment.
Do you want? Is there a response to that that we can take in relation to the?
I got a response from the
Right.
at the time.
But you'd like it to be restored in the minutes. You did
minutes.
certainly raise that. I remember distinctly, and I did feel at the time it was relevant. So I apologise for that, and I'm sure we can include it in the minutes. Any other matters arising from the minutes? Shall we then agree them subject to that amendment as a true and correct record? All agreed? Thank you very much. Have we any public questions?
No.
Have we any member questions?
No.
Right, we now move on to first line assurance, blue badge management update. It is 7 to 14 of your agenda. I wish to congratulate Mandy on a very factual and compact report which speaks for itself. So I'm going to go straight to members' questions on the blue badge report. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Note your comments. Yes, it is precise, factual. Disappointed in what it actually says, because if one looks at page 9, which is the monitoring, every month that is listed, the applications received, average per week, doesn't really equate. So is that average per week is the ones that have been processed out of the applications received? I'm not entirely sure. It says month applications received, average per week, multiplied by 4, and sometimes there's a discrepancy of a fairly high number. For example, in August, 174 average per week, 772. Not sure how that is worked out. So is it saying that every week, every month, that number is sorted, or was there an overlap? Because there's no report to show average process time. Now that's an average. There's a minimum and a maximum. I think all councillors, or most councillors within the council, have had comments from people applying for blue badges, and this is why it came forward with the unfortunate delays that some are incurring, and some have actually been fined because their blue badge, even though they applied in time, was out of date, and they attempted to use it the same as you can with the driving licence. And when they used it, they were actually fined for using a out of date blue badge, which is not legal. So is there any answer to that, please?
Yeah, that's fine. So in April 1, the chart that talks about the applications received. So applications received per month is the line of figures in the first column, and the average per week is the average that has been processed per week. As you can see, it fluctuates. The purpose of that chart was actually to demonstrate to this committee the amount of weeks outstanding, or amount of weeks the applications are taking to be processed in the date that they're actually received, which is what this committee requested last time I was here. So the purpose of that chart was to demonstrate to the committee that we are now recording the time, weeks to process. The DFT, the Department of Transport, recommends that all applications are processed within 12 weeks. And we are trying to make sure that we're maintaining that by reporting on this on a regular basis and ensure that we are within the guidance of the DFT. So when I was here last time at the committee, the committee asked for this information to be brought back to the committee, and that's the purpose of that particular chart.
Nigel?
For clarity, on August, the time was 174. It was 31 days in August. That then equates to 717.9. So I'm not sure the methodology that you've used, Roger, is right.
4 weeks. Because I've gone 4 weeks, which is 28 days.
It was not 28 days.
Let's not discuss the average per week. The applications received in total are before you. It's how you have dealt with those applications that is the important fact. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. This is very helpful, and I understand the way you've done it, so that's great. Just wondering, how far in advance can somebody order their blue badge? So, can they order it 10 weeks before? Or?
They can order it at any time. They get reminders 3 months before it's due.
Right. So they get reminders 3 months, which is roughly 12 weeks. And they're taking 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted some clarity on that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to go on to say that, unfortunately, things like our PBS checks are taking 12 weeks. I mean, anything that involves a process is going to take some time. It's unfortunate. But as long as people can actually apply up to 12 weeks before, and you send a letter out 3 months before, then I think perhaps people ought to apply a little bit earlier.
Do we send a reminder out, Mandy?
Yes.
So they get reminders 12 weeks before, so 3 months before it's due.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop them applying themselves. They can go on the apply at any point in time, but we do send reminders out 3 months before they're due. And just for further clarity, if you look at 9.3, just demonstrates the volume, increased volume of applications we've been seeing over the last few years as well. This demonstrates the fact that, we've got the same, less resources than we've ever had. We've done a reorganisation of the team to try and increase those resources to compensate for the volume of increase in the volume of applications at 9.3.
Sorry, Brian.
Yes,
Ask one more question. I think one of the issues, certainly when people are spoken to me, is perhaps the new applications. So do the new applications, are the new applications put at the front of the queue, or?
No. All applications are dealt with in strict date order to be transparent with everybody and make it fair, with the exception of applications for special rules. Those are applications for people with a terminal illness, and those are prioritised and they're processed in a day or so. Or everything else is put in strict date order and processed that way to make it fair for everybody.
Okay. Come back.
Thank you. Thanks for this report. And you're clearly getting on top of what was quite an unmanageable situation a while ago. And I really like the sound of the new professional officer role across the department, because that sounds like a very positive development. My question was about, I was just having a look at the part year numbers, and I know it's only 2 months, you can read too much in, but the numbers just seem to be picking up and up and up. Is there a plan in terms of the longer term? You know, you're trying to work with quite a restricted team already.
Unfortunately, with the current situation of the organisation, we can only use the resources that we've got right now. So this is why we're monitoring very closely the volumes of applications coming through the door and the use of the daily process. That's going to fluctuate with 16 holidays, still holidays come in, officers have got children, they want time off. That is going to go up and down, which is great. But we are keeping a close eye on the volume and trying to make sure we're under that 12 weeks transport down.
Roger, next slide. Martin.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I say, I'm not criticising officers. They're doing a good job. They're working hard. What I'm looking at is there sufficient resources given to the section to actually do this? Because it is an important one. And I thought we had standing orders about 4 weeks, but I understand what the national government says about 12 weeks. But I'm interested in resources because it quotes either in this one or the previous report that there were extra personnel involved, but the number of hours that was devoted to this and paid to do this was only marginally increased. So there were more staff, but due to the number of hours they worked on it, I think the actual increase was very small. And as has just been said, the numbers are going up both locally and nationally. So there is an anticipation, I would have thought, that there is going to be more. So are we giving the staff the ability to actually meet the demand that is out there? Because I'm getting remarks that delays are being incurred. I haven't had any for the last few weeks, but up until then, I think many councillors were getting that. So staff, yes, congratulations on doing it, but are we giving you the resources to actually manage this increase in demand?
Surely 9.4 covers that particular point.
Yeah, but if you full-time, if you look at the full-time equivalent from 1.4 to 2.3, it is 0.7 increase, even though the numbers of staff have been doubled. The has only increased marginally from 1.4 to 2.3 full-time equivalents. So you can have a dozen staff working there, but if they only work for so many hours, that's the amount of time which can be devoted in sorting out the blue bag application.
Would you wish to respond to that, Amanda?
Unfortunately, I didn't have a vacant post early on in the year, which has been taken on the vacant. I was unable to recruit into that post. So I can only use the sources at 9.5.
Yeah. Well, I think we've given that a fairly good airing. Shall we note the report, members? 3. Thank you very much indeed. We now come to items. Oh, Mandy, you're welcome to say goodbye to us and go and process another dozen applications. Right, we can move on to item 7. Second line assurance, the risk annual report on pages 6 and 6. So, Jane is with us. Welcome, Jane. And we look forward to your introduction.
The risk management annual report is presented to Audit Committee today, outlining the work and activity undertaken by the risk continuity team during 23-24. The audit team undertook the risk management audit for 23-24 with the assurance levels reasonable. There is generally a sound system control in place, but there is some evidence of non-compliance with significant control. The non-compliance is predominantly around how project teams are managing project-related risk, and the recommendation is made within the audit report have all now been actioned by the risk and business continuity team. And this includes a layer of reporting to executive directors on their project risk review status. Hold and accountable the project leads to the management of their risk environment. The strategic risk reviews continue to take place on a biannual basis, a month after the biannual operational risks. And this is to ensure that any emerging risks that are raised during the operational risk reviews can be fed up as part of the strategic risk review and considered strategically. This escalation also relates to project risks, and our project risks are reviewed. Any emerging risks are also considered for inclusion as strategic risks. Reports following reviews are provided to Assistant Directors for Operational Risk, Project Board Leads for Project Risk, and EMT Cabinet and Audit Committee from a strategic risk perspective. As detailed in the report, all current and additional controls are subject to review. Review control being added as necessary. The risk board is reviewed and altered if necessary to reflect current assurance and exposure, and are updated with narrative using a 3-line forum. Our entire risk environments of strategic, operational and project risk are embedded and maintained digitally now within the SharePoint system. This enables access to all at all times by all risk owners, and it also enables Power BI reporting to overlay the data, providing real-time information on our risk exposure. We have also implemented automatic email reminders to project owners and an escalation process should they still remain unreviewed. The opportunity risk management strategy has also recently been subject to a annual review with any minor modifications made. We continue to be involved in the activities of RAM, which is a national public sector risk management organisation, and we do this both nationally and regionally. And this puts the council forefront of risk insurance and continuing to develop best practices of the authority. I'm currently president of Lex Alarm and would like to report the strategy which our risk continuity officer has recently been awarded the Rising Star Award for the year 2024-25. We continue to also manage our business continuity programme and have ensured that all plans have been reviewed and updated this year to maintain a level of resilience. We have an ICT business continuity group in place also, which will work with further development in any cyber related incident preparedness and resilience at a service level. We continue to work collaboratively with the audit team and follow up on any unsatisfactory audit report to ensure that associated risks are being addressed as part of the operational risk review. During this year, we will also continue to engage with the officer to protect any regs to ensure the support transformation work being undertaken across the council, and that risks in relation to this are being managed in line with embedded risk management processes. We've completed the development of 2 training modules on lead, one for risk management and one for business continuity. Business continuity module is now live, and the risk management module is due to go live very shortly. This will enable all officers across the council and members to get an understanding of how both disciplines operate across the council. The team will continue to support services throughout the authority over the coming year, and we look forward to reporting on our activities for the 2025.
Thank you very much. I must say, I'm heartened by the fact that when our audit team carried out the risk management for last financial year, all recommendations made with the report have now been actioned. That was very pleasing. And I'm sure the committee was useful to congratulate the one who was president of the relevant trade body, and that also hope that Saskia continues a successful career within your team. Please convey our thanks to her, our best wishes. Right, members, the report is before us. That's Roger.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah,
I think
thank you. I just had a question about the risk state of the ICT is 25. Do you ever display the risk post the mitigation? That's in clear, because you must need mitigation in place to deal with that.
Yeah.
I've seen in another organisation where they take the risk, 25 big, we all know IoT thing, cyber stuff's really serious. But then they say we do this, which lowers the risk level to a 10, 12.
Yeah.
Do you ever display that anywhere that people can see?
We can share that with you for you to look at on our system, but we don't release it into the public domain because it's quite sensitive. So where we've got current controls in place and where we might have things that we're planning to put in place, that information is all held within the system,
Right.
but we don't release it into the public domain because it's important that people understand the rationale around how we manage risks. And if people don't really understand the whole process around risk management, sometimes that can raise alarm bells when they don't really understand how the mitigation will work to mitigate that risk. All that information, I can assure you, though, is captured within the risk registers.
Yeah, my comment came because you see the 25 risk and the alarm would go off to say that's great, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Whereas if there was perhaps another column there that said, post mitigation, this is now a 10.
Yeah.
We could be assured that all those things are in place and it'd be very visible. Just a comment.
So there is fluctuation within the risk register. So the way we do our risk, we identify what our current controls are and we score the risk based on our current control. If they're high and medium risk, we'll also give them a year-end target score. So we can certainly include that, saying when we put all these additional controls in place, this is where we would anticipate that risk then sitting within that period, that window of time. So within the financial year, if at the time we're saying it's 5,525 at the moment, we could then share with you what we think the target score would be at the end of the financial year once we've implemented those additional controls. So we can certainly add that column in.
So is the risk currently 25?
It is.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
So can you use your microphones, please? Thank you.
So the risk. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had this report or a similar report at Transformation. And I think one of the questions I asked and one of the answers I got, and James can tell me if I'm wrong, I think in part the reason for the risk being 25 is twofold, or maybe even threefold. The one is that we have to make people permanently aware of the risk because people get smarter at all, so we have to make everyone aware of it. And the other one is we've got all sorts of training and things we have to do, but because of sometimes we get people off sick, or we get new staff, or counsellors don't do their training, there's a bit of a gap there where we're a little bit more risk because people haven't done their cyber training. So I think in part it's right, it's a 25, because if we reduce the risk down, people would think, oh, well, we're not at risk. But the truth is everybody in the country is at risk because these people are getting smarter and smarter. So actually I think the risk level is probably about right. Is that about what you said, James?
I don't think we've any intention of reducing.
No.
5.
Yeah.
I think I'd just like to add to that. So we've got the likelihood of a cyber attack, which bringing back matters to 5.
Yeah.
I think most authorities would have it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have a massive amount of control over the likelihood of a cyber attack. You know, it's more of a when it will happen rather than if it would happen. The impact, however, we've probably got that identified for the reasons you just outlined. Thanks a lot. However, the more we put those additional controls in place, the more we add layers of control in, the more people that undertake that training, then actually, if we should have, whilst the likelihood of having a cyber attack might occur, the impact might not be so great. So at that point, we would look to reduce the impact of that, but we can't do for like the current time.
I think we can discuss this further in the cyber security control when we make 291 and we have cyber security expert. Thanks for listening. Roger?
Thank you, Chairman. I note the report. It isn't as full as I expected, but I do note in the report the sentence within it which states that the assurance level is reasonable. There is generally a sound system of control in place, but there is evidence of non-compliance with some of the controls. The direction of travel identified as having a weakening control environment. Can that be expanded on?
Yeah, of course. So that non-compliance, where the weakening control environment is predominant down to how project risks are being managed. So we've got operating procedure project risks. So the key projects, the capital projects that are in place, they're are some weekly control environments around those. There were recommendations made in the report about how we could improve the control environments in relation to project risk management, and we've implemented all of those controls already. And that includes that additional level of reporting to executive directors on a regular basis, so that the executive directors are aware across the board what their project risk status is, where risks are not being reviewed and where there are any areas of concern. And we've also now implemented automatic reminders to project leads when their risks need to be reviewed or when implementation dates are due to be implemented.
If I can come back, Chairman, project risk management. I noticed that in the report, all we have is just, to me, a little bit of a bland statement which shows there's 133 high project risk exposures. One of the functions here I've got in front of me is the opportunity risk management, and it says here for the roles and responsibilities of the audit committee is that their responsibility to ensure that there is a robust and efficient opportunity risk management process in operation across the council. So can we be aware of what is actually behind that? Are there any 25s? Are there any 16s? Anything like that with it? Because as an audit committee, we should know where we are as per the risk. So to say that there are 133 project risk in June 24, and I also note while I'm on the speaking that the inability to set a balanced budget for a given year is 16, given the recent updated MTFS. I would have thought that would now be higher because there has been in the MTFS, for example, the number of reductions in staff numbers has increased now to 540 because of the increased expenditure which the council has incurred or will be incurring during this year over and above what was notified in February.
Can I point out? Okay, this is the risk management. The risk assessment is done individually by senior officers and is reported regularly to us at Audit to discuss risk almost on a meeting by meeting basis. So this is about risk management rather than how risk is assessed.
If I can, Chairman, the actual full paragraph of this, roles and responsibilities, audit committee, the audit committee will receive the annual review of risk management carried out by internal audit for review and comment. Their responsibility, our responsibility, is to ensure that there is a robust and efficient opportunity risk management process in operation. I'm seeking that reassurance, especially when I see there is evidence of non-compliance with some of the controls. And as we just highlighted, some of that is with project risks. And I am concerned that some of the projects this council is undertaking is of very high value. And if the non-compliance, and we have had recent reports, which are some in the exempt sessions, where the project risk and the projects were not being managed as we would wish. So that's the messages behind this that I am asking.
Please answer that one. Maybe more an audit problem than a one for change.
Then all I can do from a risk management process point of view is to assure you that we have a robust process in place. Where we have had unsatisfactory reports, we have followed up on those. Where we have had concerns from a project risk point of view that was highlighted in the audit report of risk management processes, we have undertaken a wide management controls plan to improve the situation. So I can provide assurance that all the additional management controls that are required to be implemented as part of that to improve the position from a project risk perspective have now all been implemented. We do have a robust risk management process in place, and where there is areas of compliance and those raised with us, then the action is immediately to improve the position that we're in.
Thank you, Jane. Well, we've given,
Yes. Sorry, guys. Just wanted some clarification. How often do you do these risk assessments? Are they annual or are they quarterly or?
So operational risks are reviewed biannually, but they're all in the live system.
Yeah.
So people will go in and update them all the time. They're available all the way through the year. That's the whole point of digitalising our whole risk environment. So they're not reliant upon us to send Excel spreadsheets out. Everything is within a digital system now. So people will go in and update their risks all the way through the year whenever there's a change to their risk exposure or their risk environment. We do 2 formal reviews a year so that we can report on those to ensure that we know that at least biannually all risks across the authority from a project and operational strategic point of view are being reviewed. From a project risk point of view, the risks should be reviewed much more regularly than that, and they are. They're generally reviewed on a quarterly basis to ensure, because they're high profile and high cost capital projects, those are reviewed on a quarterly basis, formally reported, but people will go in and update those risks whenever they need to because the system's live.
So this report was based on information up to the end of the financial year.
It was based on information up to the end of June when I finalised the report.
Oh, up to the end of June.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one quick question. In terms of the project risk exposure. Oh, yeah. So, in terms of the project risk exposure, those identified, is there a clear pattern of those project risks being between third party in terms of people who are actually directly employed by the council or projects where there are contractors in? Is there a profile on that?
Yes, so what we will do is where we have third party engagement, where we will have contractors or consultants involved in those capital projects. What we will do is we will also monitor their client related risks off their risk register. So we will have access to the risk registers that they also produce as part of working with us on our projects. We will look down the whole of the client related risk, so where they've identified that it's a risk to us. And then what we will do is cross-reference that to our risk register and make sure that where they've identified that it's a risk for us, we have absolutely got that on our risk register. Some of them do it on a much more very, very granular detail, and we might look at it on a slightly more holistic view, whereas they might break it down to very individual specific things, whereas we might wrap it up a little bit better than that. But what we will do is we will do that cross-referencing with their risk register to make sure that anything that they have identified as a client, so a Shropshire Council related risk, we have got on our risk register. We've also got another column that we have recently added to the digital system for project risks, where we will actually say what line on their risk register that risk also relates to. So we've done that alignment.
Thank you. And I guess, is there a greater risk with external contractors in terms of the numbers identified here, or is there no real pattern? Okay, thank you.
Right, well, thank you, Jane, for a very comprehensive report, which I found very reassuring. We've given it adequate consideration, and I would like you to approve the position rather than just accept it. I think that you should approve the position and the function of risk management as set out in the report. All in favour of approval? Against? Abstaining? Abstaining. 3 in favour, 2 abstaining. You're abstaining. I don't know.
Yeah, I would accept it, but I'm just not. I'm confused about the difference between approving and accepting. So I'm happy to accept it.
Well, approval indicates that we are pleased with the way in which it has been reported and in which the way in which risk management is managed across the country. Anyway, given that adequate, it has been agreed by a majority of the approval. We'll now move on to annual risk, and there's no need yet. You push off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, thank you for your time and for your comprehensive answer. We now have the annual whistleblowing report, agenda item 8. Sam Williams is with us on screen. Welcome, Sam. And I invite you to present your report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Presenting today the annual report to this committee with the update on the number of whistleblowing cases that have been raised regarding council employees over the last financial year. Whistleblowing or speaking up about wrongdoing process forms a key element of the council's corporate governance arrangements. The whistleblowing policy is available to all staff via the intranet pages, and we periodically put reminders out to the workforce as well around the whistleblowing policy. It's available to members, contractors, partners and members of the public, all via the website as well. So it's fully accessible. Section 7 of the report provides information around the legislation that supports the policy and how it actually works in practice for information there. So in 2023-24, there were 23 whistleblowing reports, which is a decrease of 6 on the previous year. Predominantly, the reports have been via phone over that period of time, and the types of cases that have been raised have been more evenly raised across the different types, so staffing, council tax, financial incident and safeguarding. 2 cases were referred to an external third party. Whilst the numbers do fluctuate year on year, when we look at the last 5 years, which is section 8 of the report, we do a comparison against the last 5 years. We've got a range between 20 at the lowest and 35 at the highest, which gives an average of 26. Financial incidents is kind of the consistent theme as well each year when we do report to this committee. So happy to take any questions that the committee may have on the report.
Thank you. It was just to say, I'm very glad that you're better. Because Sam came to our meeting last week. I don't know if you're still testing positive for COVID, but you are. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, hence why I can't be there.
Being on screen, and I hope you're better soon. That's what I've got to say, really, kind of. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that time. You will all remember that we get at every meeting reported the exempt minutes about how our audit staff have dealt with whistleblowing matters. But yes, fine, thanks for that. Kate would like to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I just had a question. Obviously, phone is the most popular way of reporting this. I know that the new operating model is going to look at different ways of contacting the council. Do you know if that phone option will still be available? Because it does seem to be particularly important in this instance.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think it absolutely is. I think the very nature of whistleblowing and somebody reporting something that they have a concern about, not everybody wants to put that in writing. Hence why, as you rightly point out, phone is really, really important. I think we need to continue to offer the range of different routes in. Phone, email, we have a web form as well. We don't want to sort of deter anybody from raising any concerns they may have, as you would expect. Some people want to do this anonymously. They don't want to kind of do that in writing as such. So I think, yes, absolutely, we need to retain the different methods of people being able to report.
One of my concerns is that I'm not sure that all members of staff, with the frequent changes we have across the council's code, and people coming in, that all members of staff are as aware of the way in which the opportunity exists for them to make concerns known. And I wondered whether we should ask the chief executive, who sends out a weekly actually all get copies of a weekly update on matter stamp, whether from time to time, quarterly basis, we could include a note to remind them that our whistleblowing policy exists and that they are able to the ways in which they are able to make this known. I'm concerned and have been for a long time that the whistleblowing policy is not as widely known among staff or widely appreciated as I think it ought to be. So would you agree that we invite the chief exec to make quarterly reminders of the whistleblowing policy to staff through this weekly review?
I'd be happy to say that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, so shall we accept the report? Thanks to Sam for and best wishes for her complete recovery. With that one addition, bring this to the notes of the chief exec, shall we read the report? Okay. Thank you. We now move. Goodbye.
Bye.
We now move on to item 9, annual treasury report. And for the first time today, we invite our section 1 file officer, May Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just give a brief introduction. This is the annual treasury report for the 23-24 financial year. So it's looking back over that financial year. There are several treasury reports that come to the committee, and the committee is the committee that's been identified as the British Property Authority that will review in detail and consider and have oversight of the treasury management group.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear the way that's working. But I'm not going to stop there.
I have to say, the acoustics when the presumably the air conditioning's on are not particularly good in this. I often wonder whether Michelle, sitting at one end, can hear what members at the other end are saying.
Things were not.
Yes, that's better. That's a lot better. Thank you.
Short microphone as well, so we'll see if we get any further with this. So it was just to confirm that the annual treasury report is basically what we before, and audit committee is the body, the committee within the council that is tasked with having oversight of the treasury management process for Shropshire Council. So the report demonstrates the performance of the team over the year. As usual, there is a benchmark against which the returns are assessed, and that benchmark has been exceeded slightly. There's the level of income that's been generated as part of that return is also identified in paragraph 5.2. And the rest of the report is really just to confirm that the arrangements are in place as per the SIPFA Code of Practice. So this is the legislation that exists around the treasury management processes and the borrowing in relation to the Prudential Code, and the appendices then give the details of the borrowing, the investment, and the potential indicators, all of which are published by all authorities every year to demonstrate their compliance with the Code of Practice in those relevant areas. So happy to take any questions. Just remind members, that we did have a training session recently around treasury management, which gave an indication of where we were and where we were going in relation to that for the next 12 months. But as I say, have taken questions.
Thank you, Chair. This is always a good news report when it comes to us annually, because we always exceed our benchmark in the income we receive on the monies that we hold. Our treasury team, I must say, seem to operate at a higher level than most other local authorities. So any questions before us?
Maybe two from me, Chair. When was the last time the Treasury process was audited?
Okay.
Kate?
Yeah, we've just completed the audit of it. It's been finalised today, so it will be reported to the September committee, but it was completed earlier this year and it's been given good assurance.
Thank you.
We have anticipated your wish.
There you go. You think people are good and then you realise how good they are.
Right, so we have two recommendations to approve the report and to note the annual Treasury Management Report. To approve the prudential and Treasury indicators and to note the annual Treasury Management Report for 2023-24. I move those. Those agreed? Thank you. Right, we now move on to item 10, the internal audit performance report. Barry Hanson is going to introduce this report for us. Barry.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides members with an update on work undertaken by internal audit in the final 2.5 months of 2023-24. 95% of the revised plan has been completed, which is in line with delivery records, 94% in 2022-23. In total, during the period since the last update to the Audit Committee, 16 final reports have been issued in the period from the 20th of January 2024 to the 31st of March 2024. All are listed with their assurance ratings and broken down by service area in paragraph 8.5. The year-to-date position or year-end position, as at the end of March, is shown at Appendix A, Table 2. There is an error in the report which I'd like to draw your attention to, which is under Section 8. The heading should read 2023-24, not 2022-23, and there is an X in the paragraph there that should read 23 audits were still in progress at year end. Also, there were 4 draft audit reports that we were waiting for management assurances on at that point. So in total, 172 recommendations have been made across those 16 final audit reports issued during the period. And these are broken down by service area of paragraph 8.5, and the year-to-date position, year-end position, is shown Appendix A, Table 2. 4 fundamental recommendations have been made during that period, which are detailed in paragraph 8.10. And the details of limited and unsatisfactory assurance levels detailed on page 65 of your pack. Question for members: do you want to seek any further assurances in relation to those limited or unsatisfactory areas based on the content of the report there?
Thank you.
Any questions?
Can I advise members that if you look at the unsatisfactory report, one of them is the IT contract management follow-up. This is the table on page 55. IT contract management follow-up. I have asked that when our cyber security people come to talk to us in relation to the report in the exempted section of the agenda, that they cover this item. We shall get an update on this item later on this morning or today when we have our cyber security report before us. Those people will tell us what they're doing about that unsatisfactory recommendation. Right, Nigel.
Yes, thanks for this report. It's very, very comprehensive. I am concerned about the Bishop's Castle Community College with 2 fundamentals and 26 significant, but the underlying blue writing somewhere else suggests that this year it was unsatisfactory. Back in 2022 it was limited, and in 2020 it was unsatisfactory again. So I actually think they're not learning the lesson here, and I think we ought to have somebody from their management team come and explain not necessarily what they're doing about this audit, but what they're fundamentally doing in relation to their attitude towards audit. So we've got to, it's got to improve.
Good point, Mike. What, I don't know who has dealt with Bishop's Castle community from our side, but would you like to comment on what you feel about their attitude or why they continue to be unsatisfactory?
Yes, we had a different approach at this latest audit, obviously given the history you just outlined. So as part of any audit, we have a debrief with the manager of that service area. For this one, we did also ask the governors to attend to make sure they were fully briefed on the situation. So we did have positive engagement from the governors, and because it's unsatisfactory with the fundamental rec, we would be going to do a follow-up audit, but absolutely asking the right questions about whether to ask the head teacher or chair of governors to attend the committee to give you a management update. Obviously, the timing of our internal audit would be dependent on their timescale for implementing their recommendations. We don't want to go in too soon before they've had a chance to address those issues.
So would you feel it would be beneficial to the committee to have an update at our next meeting?
I think so, given some of the timescales were a bit longer and there's two fundamental recommendations, I think it would be beneficial to ask them to provide an update. And as you said, their attitude that these issues have been raised in the past, what are they doing differently now to address them?
At least it would bring it home to them that audit committee are watching them. The audit committee wants to see an improvement, not just the audit staff, but the committee itself is very concerned.
Thank you, that's really good. I am pleased that it's gone to governors and the governor himself. And I think it is about ratcheting it up. So pulling them here and put them on the hot seat. Thank you.
Yeah, all members all agree on that. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. As I understand it, this is the performance for the whole year 23-24, the financial year. There were 2 exempt reports we received in February on certain items. Will they be dealt with separately? Because I can't see them listed here at all.
And this is an update on the last quarter of the year. Barry's got the next report is the annual opinion report.
Okay, right.
In terms of the management update in relation to that, the audit I think you're talking about, that was due to come to the September committee. So there'll be a management update at the September committee for the North West Relief Road, and we'd be doing an audit of that area in Q4.
Right, Nigel, please.
Yes, thank you. Not mentioned separately within the report, but I noticed going down the table that in resources, annualised hours 2022-23, whilst you're saying that that's reasonable, there are 29 significant findings and 16 requires attention, which when you look at all the other audits you've done in the last 3 months, there are significantly high numbers there, and yet you still give that a reason. I accept there's no fundamental, to be fair.
Yeah, the approach for that audit is slightly different, but absolutely right to pick up that does look like an anomaly. So the annualised hours policy is owned by HR, setting out how annualised hours should work. And what we do is what we call a dip sample across a number of different teams. So the number of recommendations relate, I think there were 6 different teams where we looked in detail at how they recorded their time. So there are recommendations for each of those. So there's individual issues within some teams, but overall, the way the policy is implemented and communicated, that's the reasonable assurance. But there are a number of recommendations to different teams. So it's 7 reports in total, 1 to HR and 6 to the individual teams.
Okay. I'm concerned about the sentence at the top of page 57, which said, this meeting, the report concludes that 40% of audit assurances issued across the full 23-24 year were limited or unsatisfactory, with concerning increase in unsatisfactory assurances when compared with 22-23. When things are not getting better, there is considerable reason for concern, and I think this will be, we can cover this more extensively in the next report when Barry is going to give the internal audit annual report. So,
if I can, in reference to my last question about the reports that we received in February, that was the last quarter. The audit may not have been done then, but the committee received those exempt audit reports at the February meeting. So should they not be included in this report for the last quarter or not?
The figures are in the February meeting, so we did, they came to the same meeting it was reported at. They are included in the total for the year-end report that Barry's presenting next. This covers,
but not this one. Oh, well, yeah, okay.
The audit assurance for those audits and the recommendations are in the table for the February one and included in the year-end one.
right, shall we note the report, members? All agreed? Thank you. We now move on to the third line assurance, item 11, audit annual report, internal audit annual report. Barry to present again.
Thank you, Chair. So this annual report provides members with the details of work undertaken by internal audit for the year ended 31st of March 2024. It informs on the delivery against the approved internal audit plan and includes the Chief Audit Executive's opinion on the Council's internal controls as required by the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. The internal audit plan for 23-24 was considered and approved by the committee at its meeting on the 14th of February 2023. Revisions throughout the year reflect change in risks and resources that were reported to the committee, and the plan revised to 1,239 days. In arriving at my opinion, I have taken the following into account. The results of all audits undertaken during the year ended 31st of March 2024, the results of the corporate governance and risk management audits, the results of fundamental audit reviews, self-assessments and their direction of travel, which are included in Appendix A, Table 3, implementation of recommendations of a fundamental nature, assurance levels provided across and their direction of travel, and those recommendation ratings compared against the risk appetite of the council, fundamental recommendations that have not been accepted by management and the consequent risks of those, effects of any material changes in the organisation's objectives or activities, matters arising from previous reports to the audit committee and or council, and if any limitations have been placed on the scope of internal audit throughout the year, whether there have been any resource constraints imposed which may have impinged on internal audit's ability to meet the full internal audit needs of the council, and the proportion of the council's internal audit needs that have been covered to date. So further consideration of the assurance levels of the completed audits showed that the internal audit plan continued to flex, and that was reported to the audit committee meetings in September, November and February 2024. The revised plan work alongside other activity has helped provide appropriate assurance to the council. Some of the areas contributing to their opinion appear in Appendix A, Table 2. There are concerns that unsatisfactory assurance levels have increased. 18% of the total assurances delivered in 2023-24, Whilst it's not recognised that these are complex areas that do take time to turn around, there's been a focus on addressing these by escalating them to the appropriate executive director for appropriate action. Target operating model was being refined during 2023-24, and this is yet to be fully adopted. Cyber security also continues to be key, and the council's reliance on digital systems significant. So given the overall proportion of assurance levels and the key systems, delay in delivering improved controls, some of which are fundamental and significant, the level of assurance that the Chief Audit Executive can provide on the council is impacted upon. The 2023-24 payroll audit resulted in a limited assurance opinion. It is planned to revisit unsatisfactory audits and fundamental recommendations during the interim audit plan for 2024-25. So 41 good and reasonable assurances were made during the year, which accounts for 60% of the opinions delivered. This represents a 1% increase in the higher levels of assurance compared to the previous year. This is offset by a 1% decrease in the number of limited and unsatisfactory assurance opinions. 12 unsatisfactory assurance opinions and 15 limited assurance opinions were issued. I do note that there is a concerning upward trend in the number of unsatisfactory assurance opinions, increasing from 11% of the audit reports issued during 2022-23 to 18% in 2023-24. It is prudent for me to consider this as a key factor in determining the year-end opinion on the internal control environment. A total of 525 recommendations have been made, 68 final audit reports that have been issued in the year, and these are broken down by audit area and have been reported in more detail in the performance reports that have been presented to committee throughout the year. The percentage split of recommendations has changed, with 45% significant and fundamental recommendations compared to 38% in 2022-23, with a corresponding decrease in requires attention and best practice recommendations. So based on the internal audit work and management responses received, I offer limited assurance for the 23-24 year on the council's framework of governance, risk management and internal control. There are a continuing high number of high and medium rated weaknesses identified in individual assignments that are significant in aggregate, but where discrete parts of the system may remain unaffected. The year has continued to be challenging, with continued development of key fundamental line of business systems and key changes in managerial posts, alongside the challenge to deliver the savings and increased income. The council has set out a strategy within the Shropshire plan, and service plans are being aligned to the identified priorities, and work with the strategic partner PwC has continued and refined throughout 23-24 to help deliver the plan. However, the full impact of this engagement is yet to be fully realised. Thank you. That's my summary, Chair.
Thank you for that comprehensive review, Barry. Going back to my previous remarks on the report, the last report, that 40% of audit assurances issued across the full 23-24 year were limited or unsatisfactory, with a concerning increase in unsatisfactory assurance compared with 2022-23. Now, we then come to the fact that for the last 5 years, the best that the audit manager can do is to give a limited assurance to the council. In other words, the direction of travel is not improving. And I feel that as a committee, we ought to draw the attention of the Chief Executive and senior management to this matter, that we are concerned as a committee that the procedures of the council across the border as a whole do not indicate that control is getting any better and has not improved effectively for the last 5 years. Yes, Claire, then Nigel.
Thank you. So in paragraph 8.8, and you did mention it when you spoke, a total of 525 recommendations have been made in the final 68 final audit reports. Can you give us some idea of the category that these 535 sit in, and make, you know, and sort of some sort of weight to them? So are they significant or very significant, critical? I mean, because obviously that's where the problem is or isn't.
Yeah, so each recommendation as it's made is categorised either best practice, it requires attention, significant or fundamental in nature, and that depends on the risk that's been identified as part of that process. So each of those 525 recommendations has got an associated level to it, and the management have to respond on that basis. So the report isn't finalised until we've got a management response against the recommendation that says whether they're going to implement that recommendation or not.
Yeah, but I think before we can, start jumping up and down, we need to understand about these 525 things and have some sort of rating, so that we need to understand what's in there.
The level of significance, where they sit in the organisation.
And without that, it's very difficult, I think, to give a measured response.
Yeah. The problem is that this has not changed for 5 years. We've had the same limited opinion for at least 5 years, maybe longer than that. My record's only got about 5 years. And the fact that the direction of travel is not improving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't dispute that, but what I'm trying to say is, why haven't we looked at the level of these problems? Why haven't we got more information on that? That's what I'm asking.
Within this report, on page 74, there's a trend in internal audit recommendations, and that breaks them down into the categories. So that's the overall number of recommendations broken down by percentage into the categories. The report that Barry just presented, the performance report that we bring to each committee meeting, there's a table in there that shows that quarter's performance and the year to date, and it shows the individual audits with the categories of recommendations against them. The bits that, just in terms of practicalities and time, obviously the number of audits we do, the committee focuses their attention on the limited and unsatisfactory audits or the fundamental recommendations, and those are the bit in item 10 that Barry drew out the recommendations. Did members want to seek any further assurance? So if you've got any concerns about the rating of the recommendations and where they sit in the organisation, you can see that in the table and item 10. In this report, there is a summary further down on page 81, which breaks down the assurance and highlights those that had a fundamental recommendation, but it hasn't got the year-to-date picture in here showing all of the recommendations, but that is in the previous report, if you like. So it's in two places as such. But if there's any areas where you want extra assurance, you can always contact Barry and I, and we can share that information with you.
Yeah, because it says there that fundamental in 1819 was 1%, 1920 1%, 2021 2%, and it's stuck at 2%. So it'd be interesting to actually dig a little bit deeper and see what those fundamental things are. I think. Anyway. Thank you.
Nigel.
Yes, previous audit manager to this committee, when they were on about trends, suggested that having a low good is not necessarily bad, because it just means you're focusing your audit on what you perceive may be failing or may have issues. And so actually this probably demonstrates how good audit were actually homing in on what they needed to. But then going back to Brian's question about 5 years worth of limited, I think we have to not forget that we've gone through a period of COVID and a period of reorganisation that involves last year with saving money and now even more so this year. And that when I first started here 3 years ago, I considered limited to be, I was comfortable with it. Perhaps wrongly, I don't know. That then leads to the question, what about benchmark with other councils and their audits as to, is everybody else getting reasonable, reassured or whatever? Or is it really that audit tend towards limited? And especially now our audit team is smaller. That makes sense?
Yes, it's your point. I don't know, but
My chair. In terms of benchmarking, it's very difficult. You know, the obvious answer that I'm going to give is every authority is different. They all have a different audit plan. It's focused on their particular organisation, and therefore comparing one to another is quite difficult in the sense of what they audit, how they audit it, the size of their audit team, the size of their audit plan, the different approaches that they have. I think to pick up on the point that is being made here, I think the table in 8.5 to me gives the starkest trend demonstration of the concern that we have from an internal audit point of view. So if you look at table 8.5, you can clearly see that the green on the left-hand side has deteriorated as we've moved into future years. And you can see that the red on the left-hand side is fundamentally grown. So therefore, there's more unsatisfactory audits and less good. So that trend is definitely there. Then taking into account the point that Nigel just made, absolutely, if you have less resources with an internal audit team, you will tend to focus on the higher risk areas. And so when you look at the next table at the top of page 74, that difference is less stark. So you look at those early years and you move to the more recent, to the late old years to the more recent years. There is a trend that's demonstrating that the requires attention recommendations has reduced, and clearly the fundamental has increased, but it's only a very small percentage. And that does reflect a little bit more the areas that are being reviewed and the types of recommendations that are made on the back of that. So the kind of the logical conclusion of that is if you're looking at a smaller area, a smaller plan across the organisation, if that control environment actually started to improve, you're not necessarily going to see it in the recommendations very clearly and very easily. Certainly not the recommendations, but you would hope to start to see it in terms of the overall audit opinions. You'd start to see more reasonable coming through. So in terms of the points that are made around the focus of the organisation over COVID, over austerity, the difficult financial position, clearly that has had an impact, partly certainly over the COVID period on the work of the internal audit team, but certainly in terms of what officers are doing, what their day job covers, how they are managing that, and what attention they can give to all of the different things that we're asking them to do, one of which is about managing the internal control environment. That said, the work that we're doing at the moment around the transformation of the organisation is very much focused on how do we tackle this reducing control environment. So with a resized organisation with less staff in there, what we are looking for is far more automated approaches, far more digitalising artificial intelligence kind of use within the process that we have. If those are introduced at the right places, actually that can remove a lot of the kind of the human error and the impact of discretion, let's say, within decision making. So potentially, even with less people, you can actually significantly improve the internal control environment. And so the work of internal audit over the next couple of years will be to move into that space in a different way, which actually potentially means we can get greater coverage across the organisation, and we are looking to see an improvement in that control environment. So the way forward is potentially more hopeful, but I'm not going to detract from the point that I think is clearly demonstrated in section 8.5, that it's, while the overall assurance has been limited, the control environment and feedback has clearly deteriorated over the period.
Can I just expand a little bit?
Yes, certainly you can, which is very important.
Just to pick up on that point, 'cause it is a really, really important one, and the internal audit process that is followed is prescribed by the public sector internal audit standards, and that hasn't changed for the last 6 or 7 years. So the way in which the internal audit work is undertaken, planned, the field work undertaken, the testing undertaken, the reports, and the review process is exactly the same. During that period, it has not changed. So the approach to how each individual audit assignment is undertaken has not changed during that time. So the approach has been consistent. So that gives me assurance that what we're seeing in the results and the findings from the individual audit assignments are representative of the deteriorating control environment rather than an increasing one.
Okay. So are we concluding that we have to accept the position as it is, that there is unlikely to be anything which the senior management can do to ensure that we get a better than limited assessment next year?
Future. I think what I'm saying is that the senior officers of this organisation are actively looking to improve the internal control environment. What I can't give you is a guarantee that in the space of a few months that will turn around that quickly. I think as a minimum, I'd be looking to ensure it doesn't deteriorate further, and then we start to see an improvement.
Okay, thank you for that, Claire.
Sorry, I'm just looking on page 82, which I haven't noticed before. And we said earlier we wanted people from Bishop's Castle to come in, but it might be we've got Much Wenlock Sports Centre joint use, that's in red. We've got Bishop's Castle in there already, and you've got the leisure services people. So maybe when we come back, we sort of broaden it out to include those 3 things. Have you had them here? Have you?
I can respond to those. So the Much Wenlock Sports Centre, we're doing a follow-up audit of, but at the February committee, the executive director of place was here and gave the committee a verbal assurance on that one. But anything that's unsatisfactory or a fundamental recommendation, we will go back within 12 months and repeat the audit. Leisure services contract has been followed up since that report was finalised and will be coming to the September committee. It has improved from unsatisfactory, I think, to reasonable. And the other one, Bishop's Castle is the one that we just reported in this committee.
And then the other thing, WhatsApp, I thought you deleted that. I thought nobody could use it, so you could take that off, couldn't you? Or are we allowed to do it? We allowed that. We forgot WhatsApp.
WhatsApp's still in use, and we're completing a follow-up audit of that at the moment. It's in progress.
Right. Okay.
Barry is the responsible officer for that report. He could give you a verbal update.
Right. Okay. Because I mean, it's something that isn't particularly necessary. And then the other one, disposal of IT equipment. I mean, I just thought, in this authority, with all the IT we've got, we can't dispose of our equipment. That's shameful. I mean, there's a few things in here that would be relatively easy, I would have thought, to sort out.
Well, you can ask that one about the disposal of IT equipment when we come to the exempt report later on.
Yeah, okay, all right. It was just a few, because sorry, I'm new to this, but, okay, thank you.
Right, well, Kate.
Just one point, I was very interested. Thank you. I was very interested to hear about the potential role of artificial intelligence in some of the audits performance, perhaps. And so I wonder if that could be a future topic for discussion We might not be at the stage to have anything concrete, but that could really make quite a big difference, I'm guessing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we haven't got anything concrete yet, Kate, on that. However, we do have co-pilot licenses. We're starting to utilise AI technologies now. In terms of internal audit work itself, we do have an analytics strategy, so an audit analytics strategy. So that includes a number of different tools that we've got available to us. And there's a product called Idea that we use for data analytics, which is a very powerful analytics tool that runs testing across the whole population of a data set and provides us with the results then that we can give back to the business. In terms of the use of AI going forward, it's at its inception stage at the moment across the authority. So as AI is implemented across the organisation, we'll obviously utilise that as where, best we can from an efficiency perspective first and foremost. And then, where we can gain assurances through the use of AI, we will certainly look at it. But we want to be sure the results that we're seeing through the AI technologies can be relied upon. And that means some testing before we can place the reliance on that.
Yeah. Right. Well, we've given that report a fair.
Brian, I don't.
The problem is, Jim, you're sort of divorced from the rest. My eyesight, I've got tunnel vision, you see.
Well, I'll sit over that side next time. It's just I noticed that the number of audits increased from 44 last year to 68 this year. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, the number of finalised reports as at year end. So there are some audits included within the 23-24 figure that were audits started in the previous year. So when we reported to the committee at the time, we had an external contractor delivering some of the audit work, and they were delayed in completing it. So the figures sort of have rolled over.
So I saw that was completed with another drop in the number of audit days from prior year.
Yeah,
20% in the number of audit days. And because my concern was, if we're doing more audits with less resource, which is great because that's the race etc. of the council at the moment, is there any compromise to quality in the audits if we are doing a lot more with a lot less?
Absolutely, we wouldn't compromise the quality throughout any of the audits that we do. We have to comply with the public sector internal audit standards, which set out the way in which we have to do an audit. In terms of those numbers, the easiest way to probably see it is on page 81, 82. That table breaks down the 68 that are included in the 23-24 figures, and some of them have got 22, 23 after them. So that's one that was in progress or draft at year end that was started in 22-23 but finalised in the year just gone.
Thank you. Thank you for the point, Jim. I have always emphasised for audit staff that we mustn't sacrifice the quality and detail of the audit in pursuit of numbers, sheer numbers. With staff shortages, I'd rather continue to do fewer comprehensive audits than simply have anybody think that they might skim through more audits in order to increase the numbers we actually do. Quality is absolutely everything in my view. That's making the point. Now, shall we endorse the chief audit executive's limited assurance year end? Read that we endorse that opinion. All in favour? Thank you. Right. We can now move on to WAPE, I think. Item 12, third line assurance, annual review of quality assurance, etc. Barry, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So yes, this is the quality assurance and improvement program. So this is the QUAPE, which applies to the SIAS, which is the public sector internal standards, which Barry was referring to earlier. So every 5 years we need to undertake an external assessment. The last one was in February 22, and the internal team was found to be fully compliant at that point in time. So the next assessment will be undertaken by the end of March 2027. In the meantime, every year we undertake an internal assessment against those standards using the process that's in place, and we report that through the audit committee every year. There are in the majority of cases we are fully compliant, and we have the evidence behind that to demonstrate that the internal audit team complies. There are, however, two areas. And these areas have been flagged regularly each year of where there is potential non-conformance to be completely open. So one of those is around the objectivity standard, and this is basically where internal auditors may be involved in helping the organisation to bring in place a new process. By getting involved early in that, it can help improve that process and ensure it's put in place appropriately. But of course, the problem then is that if that same auditor goes back and audits that area, then they're effectively marking their own homework. So to manage that, we always try to ensure that a different auditor is involved in doing that. The alternative, of course, is that internal audit wouldn't get involved at the start. The process would put in place, and then internal audit would come in afterwards and said, you shouldn't have done it like that. This would have been much better, and it doesn't really help. So therefore, we're happy in terms of that perhaps partial non-compliance. The other area then is again around objectivity, and this is around the appointment and removal of the chief audit executive, which in this case is Barry. And this is because some of the examples that they give to demonstrate the independence around that we don't comply with. So, for example, it's the Section 151 officer, myself, who appoints the chief audit executive rather than the audit committee itself. So there's an argument that therefore removes some independence, and also it's around sort of performance management, etc., etc. So we're being completely open in relation to those areas, but other than that, we are fully compliant with all the other areas of the science. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, everybody happy? Shall we endorse the conclusion that the council employs an effective internal audit service? Agreed? Thank you. Right, well, it is 11:30, so I propose to take a 5-minute comfort break before we move on. Right, so we'll all be back here by 11:35 at the latest. to agenda item 13. This was a late item, mainly because it's got to be signed off by me. And I was on holiday until for fortnight till Monday. So it is going to council tomorrow as well. But the report is now before you and is something we are required to send to council every year to tell them that we are happy or as happy as possible with the way in which the council's affairs are conducted in terms of audit. Right, I don't know whether you want to say anything further, James.
Not particularly, Chair. As you say, it's the annual assurance report comes every year to audit committees. It goes through to full council and provides council with the assurance of the work that has been completed by the internal audit team and the audit committee over the year. So it's really just a question of ensuring that audit committee is comfortable that it represents the work that's been done over the last 12 months.
I've already signed it off and it's got the council. I wait with trepidation to find out whether the committee is prepared to fix it. This report. It is really a factual report of what audit committee have actually done over the last 12 months. Any comments on the report? All right, shall we agree with the report? Goes forward to council tomorrow. All in favour?
Through you, Chairman, I did vote against it in the draft stage. I still do, but in essence, I support it. But I am concerned about certain aspects of it.
Well, I've no doubt you'll state those tomorrow.
Well, say for the rec, I'm against it, but okay, it's not a real fundamental one. But yes, it's just unhappiness in certain parts of it. And that's the only way I can actually
we accept the point. And if you wish to make it count tomorrow, then plainly that's the right forum to do so. Right, so we've agreed to accept the annual insurance. We now move on to agenda item 14, third line assurance, the internal audit plan for 24-25, the year we're in. Barry Hampson is going to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides members with the proposed risk-based internal audit plan for 2024-25. It is slightly unusual this year. We would normally produce the internal audit plan for the forthcoming year and present that to the February audit committee in advance of the forthcoming financial year. This year was slightly different in that we were undertaking a recruitment process. Obviously, as members are aware, there have been a number of vacancies within the internal audit team during 2023-24, and a number of different recruitment campaigns have been undertaken throughout the year to address that issue. We're now in a position since the February audit committee where 4 new appointments have been made. So those appointments are 1 at principal auditor level, 1 at auditor level who have commenced in role, and then the most recent recruitment campaign that we undertook, 2 further auditors have been offered and accepted roles, and we're currently working through the start dates and working through their notice periods. They will be in imminently during the 24-25 financial year. So the annual plan provides coverage across high risk areas of the council and delivers internal audit services to a range of external organisations as well. It takes account of the issues identified by the client's risk management frameworks, includes the risk appetite levels set by management for the different activities and parts of the organisations audited. The proposed plan considers the requirement to produce
an annual audit opinion on the assurance framework, which you heard in the annual report presented a short while ago. The plan is usually presented in February, as I've said, and the finalisation of the plan for 24-25 has been delayed because of those recruitment processes. The 24-25 internal audit year will see continued pressures on services, including recruitment challenges in some areas, the impact of the voluntary redundancy programme, consultation on service closures and amendments, and the 62 million budgetary reductions and the work of our strategic partner in PwC. It's anticipated that the Shropshire plan will require additional assurance work from internal audit. However, the impact and pace of change is unknown at this time. So therefore, the approach to agreeing the plan with so many unknowns needs to be agile and will need to respond to the changing risk environment throughout the year. So we'll make those adjustments and updates to the internal audit plan on a regular basis, and that will be reported to committee throughout 24-25.
Thank you, Barry. If members would turn to para 7.9 on page 100, you will see that it would take 3,527 days to review all high-risk areas. And we are now down to 796. And that rang an alarm when I read this report, that I was aware we were going to be very much lower this year. Because as recently as 2021, 2019-20 and 2020-21 were almost the same, that we actually carried out 2,100 planned days, and now we're down to 796, which is about 35% of what we did then. And I was very concerned about this, but Barry has reassured me that with the number of staff that have already been appointed, we shall achieve many, many more than the 796 days this year. That assumes that we've no staff leaving. We're not aware of any of existing staff leaving at the moment. The whole problem across the audit industry is that both in the private sector and the public sector, there is a desperate shortage of auditors. So we are competing for auditors, not just with local government, but with the whole private sector. And it is not easy to both obtain and maintain the level of staff that we are entitled to, which is 11 full-time equivalents. So with that background, my concerns are somewhat allayed that we should be able to carry out our responsibilities when the new people, the 4 new people coming, are adequately trained in local government and the way in which we carry out our audit, to be able to set off on their own as directed and increase the number of audit days very significantly indeed. So that's my background to the situation, which looks at first sight this report as being very, very serious indeed. Anybody else with comments? Okay. Can we then approve the draft internal audit annual plan 24-25? All agreed? Thank you very much. We now welcome on board, or they are on board, but we welcome again now Akhtar Sahal, who is our engagement lead, as called, from Grant Thornton, our internal auditors, and Mary Wren, who assists him and particularly looks after our accounts. Both welcome now. There are a number of reports before us, starting with the external audit plan, item 15 on our agenda. So who's going to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. So Mary will go through the audit plans, and then I will then look at the value for money reports. So just to give you that plan on how we're going to deliver.
Right, fine, whatever you wish. So Mary, you're going to start off.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chair. So this is the audit plan for the 23-24 financial year. So that audit will be starting in the next couple of weeks, and we'll look at your financial statements for the year to the 31st of March, 2024. So this will be a familiar document to many of you on the committee, so I will just provide a high-level overview and just focus on the key elements of the report. If I could first of all take you to page 7, and that's page 127 of the agenda pack. I'll just spend a little bit of time on the significant risk areas, because these are the areas we focus the majority of the audit time. So two of these risks have to be considered in accordance with auditing standards. And the first one is the presumed risk of fraud in revenue recognition. This has been rebutted in full for the council, so we don't see this as a risk. We do carry out procedures around revenue and substantive procedures, but we haven't identified it as a significant risk for the council. The other risk we have to consider is management override of controls, and this is a risk which is not rebuttable. It's on page 8 of our report, page 128 of your pack, and this will be included in audit plans across the sector. You know, it is something that cannot be rebutted, and we do generally cover most of this work by reviewing your journal control environment and substantive testing of journals as well. If I could take you to page 128 of your pack, again, there is just another risk we have to consider. Again, this is rebutted in full, and this relates to your risk of fraud related to expenditure recognition. So again, that has been rebutted. The remaining risks are set out on pages 129 to 131 of your pack. These are areas which involve a high degree of estimation. They're complex accounting arrangements and generally involve the use of external experts as well. Valuation of land and buildings, pension transactions. So that's why they are detailed as significant risks, and we do spend a significant, way too many words of significant in there, but it does take a significant amount of audit time to get through those areas as well. If I could just take you to page 135 of your pack, there are other areas of the audit we do spend quite a high volume of time on. They are not significant risks, but just to draw your attention to those areas. Operating expenditure and the completeness in particular of that expenditure is an area of audit focus, as well is bank and cash transactions and the bank reconciliation process. Generally, if you find bank reconciliation doesn't work, there are other areas in the accounts which equally do not work. So it is a fundamental control that we do look at as well. If I can now take you to page 135 of your pack, and that's page 15 of our report. Just to highlight that our work is done in the context of materiality. You do have group accounts, so we do have to set 2 levels of materiality. One for the group financial statements, and that has been set at £10 million. We do have a slightly lower level of materiality for the single entity statements, which is 9.5 million. We do report, however, at a much lower level. So anything we report to committee in our audit findings report is at a level of £500,000 or above. So far, I've talked about the financial statement audit. We do carry out work regarding the council's value for money arrangements. Framework for this is set out on pages 18 and 19 of our reporting pack. Avatar does also have reports later on in the presentation which take you up to 22-23 financial year in relation to our value for money work, and that is reported in the auditor's annual report. In relation to 23-24, that planning work is in progress, and will be the risks related to value for money that we've identified. Any potential ones will be reported to the next audit committee. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but I'm more than happy to take any questions on the content of the report.
Well, thank you, Mary. That's a very comprehensive report. Members, any questions? Everybody happy with the report? So shall we note the report with thanks? That's item 15. We now move on to item 16, informing the audit risk assessment. Again, Mary, you're going to deal with it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate this is quite a lengthy report, but I'm going to keep it quite brief. So as part of our audit planning work, and this report does really underpin our audit plan and is our main format of communication with management. So we ask a volume of questions to management which cover areas such as fraud, laws and regulations, related parties, going concern, for example, and we populate the informing the audit risk assessment really as a means to triangulate those responses for management with you as those charged with governance. So I'm not going to go into the detail of the report, but really it's an opportunity for you to comment on those responses provided by management, and I will note any changes that you would like to add to those responses. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mary. I don't think any of us would wish to hear the responses made by management. But are there any comments on the report? Shall we note the report? It comes regularly to us or annually to us. No. Any officers wish to say anything? No. So we note that report. Thank you very much indeed. Item 17, pension fund audit plan. Those of us who are on the pension fund, which is the vice chairman, and Roger and myself will have already seen this at the pension fund, but it has by law to come to us to give it our blessing. Do you want to say anything further, Mary?
No, absolutely. I was just going to be very brief. It was approved at the Pension Committee on 15th of March. So this is really just for information. And obviously, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. But it really is for information for this committee. Thank you.
I wasn't at the Pensions Committee on the 15th. Can't remember whether, so I don't know whether there was any queries raised.
Any issues, Chair?
Very straightforward report. So, says the pension fund is being satisfactorily administered. So shall we, item 17, shall we accept that report with thanks? Then we have a thick day today, external audit. We now got fourth report from external audit. Third line assurance, the auditor's annual report. Now, who's doing this? You again, Mary?
So I will take this, Chair. Thank you. So I will take item 18 and 19 together because they're two lines of the value for money reporting that we've been doing. Just to add, this is under when Grant was the audit signatory, the director. So I am using some of Grant's notes to present on this, just to highlight some of the key facts. If there are some questions, I'll try my best to answer anything, but I might need to go back to Grant and the team who've written these reports if needed. So Grant was planning to attend last the last committee and present these reports, but because of election and other things, with discussions with management, we decided to defer it to this meeting. The two reports cover the arrangements over the value for money over 2021, and then a joint report for 21-22 and 22-23. For this council, it's the first time you're seeing the extended reporting which was required by the code, where we look at the three areas of financial sustainability, governance, improving economy and efficiency and effectiveness, and do extended reporting on it. So what we do is raise improvement points, which are kind of like industry best practices to help improve processes and governance and whatnot. And then we also have key recommendations or significant recommendations, which are basically the ones that we are the high level risks, basically, or high level weaknesses, which we tend to focus on in terms of when we're reporting. So in 2021, there was one significant weakness which was raised around governance, and that was to do with a specific negotiation settlement with the senior officers. Not really going to go into the details because it is given in the reports, but what created this significant weakness was maybe the arrangements not being followed and things not being done in a clear and transparent manner, which they prompted to us to say there were weaknesses in arrangements to really get to documenting the decisions that were made. And therefore we raised a number of recommendations, and what we can be pleased to say is that on, I think it was the 29th of February 2024 committee, full council committee, there's a senior officer employment procedure was approved at that council meeting, which basically addresses a number of recommendations that we raised. So that's why we only see this as we've reported it as a significant weakness for 2021, because that was the year when this the transactions were occurring. For other areas, they are quite similar, so the improvement points between the three areas are quite similar across the years. But in 21-22 and 22-23, we do raise a significant weakness around finances and medium-term financial planning and whatnot. And this is against the backdrop that the council is operating, and some of the information that we've already shared, been discussed already, is the financial challenges the council is operating in, and even going forward. We appreciate the council is partnered with PwC and is doing a large and complex transformation program to identify the savings and make the changes what it needs to make sure operations are sustained and can delivering a balanced budget each year. But we had to flag this as a significant weakness, just given the level of where the reserves were dropping to, and progress made against the saving plans and whatnot. So that just gives a summary of the two significant weaknesses that we have identified. I'm happy to take any questions, and as I said, if I'm not too sure of the answer, I will just come back and defer to Grant if necessary.
Thank you very much. Can you remind me if there are any significant matters on the accounts for the last 2 years raised by the public which are still outstanding?
There is, I believe there's an objection outstanding from 2021, I think, which needs to be resolved at the moment. I think we are working through it, but at the moment Grant is overseeing that process, so I'm not 100% sure of the details of when that comes to completion.
I can just add a little bit more to that, Chair. We have been trying to contact the objector. We haven't received a response. So when Grant returns, looking to see how we take that forward following that lack of response from the objector.
So somebody made an objection, but has not, shall we say, followed it up in any form of.
Yeah, so what we normally do is present the objector with the draft sort of report to comment letter, and we wait to see if they are satisfied that it's covered their objection. And I think at this point we haven't received that confirmation or acknowledgement that they're happy with the response given.
Thank you. And that's the only one outstanding.
Yeah, that's the one outstanding. There are other matters that have been brought to our attention for 23-24, but one of those we're still investigating whether we do think it's a valid objection or not, and the other is not really an objection, but it was an area of focus work that we're doing regardless. And this will be covered in the 23-24 annual report. So it's nothing to worry about. There's one objection which it seems to be a common theme across many councils now getting the same objection. So we're just looking at this with NAO, SIPFA, etc. to think, is it a valid objection or not?
Thank you. Roger. Thank you, Chairman. I read with interest, especially the one where staff leaving the council were involved, because I and a number of members asked questions at that time about what was happening, and the information that we asked for was refused due to confidentiality. But I do note that the council exceeded its authority in actually agreeing the termination of that person. And I also note the report which went to council in February, which altered the way council does that in the future. A number asked why it was presented to the council then, and this report does make sense of why it was presented. If the council had not taken that report, would you have taken this further?
We would have had to look at what, because ultimately it's our duty to report on, what the issue was around the weaknesses, and then it's for management's, point to respond and put procedures, arrangements in place. And if there was a point where we didn't think it had been addressed in the detail required or the actions were taken, we might do more statutory type reporting. So in a matter, in some cases it could end up with a statutory recommendation or a sort of public interest report, but it just depends on when we don't think a response is adequate or there's a real weakness in arrangements that we need to draw to members to really act upon urgently.
Again, Chairman, if I can, there was a lot of public interest at that time at what happened in those 2 or 3 hours that it took for that to take place. And there was no information given out at all. And according to your report, the council exceeded its authority in agreeing that, and it should have gone to full council for that to be agreed. So that's it. That to me is interest. But I see about the highways and also the members, but some of the management information in it does not say it's being implemented. It's saying it's being looked at. Are you content with those comments?
I mean, some of these areas, any recommendation we've made, we're following up in terms of our 23-24 value for money arrangement work. So I'm content at this point in time, and if we don't think some of these issues are adequately addressed, we will draw again in our reporting for 23-24 report.
There.
Thank you, Brian. I don't know what you're talking about, Roger. What are you talking about? An individual, or are you going to say what you're talking about? Or
this is a public report. The chief executive left the authority at 2 hours' notice, and it does say that the leader at that time and the agreements that were subsequently made and implemented the following April should have been reported to full council.
And do you agree with that statement, sir?
And so what we can state is basically the council didn't follow its procedures at that point in time. Again, I'm not privy to the full details on this. This was when, grants info, but from inference and reading the report, it just seems like procedures weren't followed and there was a termination that was agreed, and maybe it didn't go through the right channels at that point in time, and it and that's why we highlight these weaknesses.
Okay, so I'm just interested in this. Is it
It will presumably come back to us when the whole matter is.
I mean, is it a risk to the council? Clearly not, because the situation's been resolved. I think.
So if I may, Chair, just very briefly, the audit was undertaken, the review was undertaken by Grant Thornton. What they concluded was that there was a difference of opinion in terms of the following of the procedures. And so what we felt was Grant Thornton's view was there were procedures that should have been followed. The interpretation that was followed by officers was slightly different. Therefore, there was an ambiguity around it. So on the basis of that, we've dealt with that by ensuring that we have a very clear process in place that's been approved by council. So there was nothing in there that we were concerned about in terms of the process. However, that external view suggested that there were some areas that could be considered different.
Okay. Right, through you, Chairman, I think the report is a little bit more clear than that, in that they could have raised legal objections to it, but they waited to bring this report to us until the council had decided in February to modify its procedures. So it's a little bit further than that. If you read the report, it says that it did exceed, and the recommendation would have been that it should have gone to full council to agree that. However, what was happened in February has regularised it, so it's just a recommendation here that it needs to be noted.
So just to clarify, Chair, that was absolutely the opinion of Grant Thornton. That's what's written in the report. What I'm saying is that was a different opinion that was held by the council, but to manage that, we've taken a report through to council to ensure that there's no ambiguity around that. But that's absolutely the opinion that Grant Thornton came to.
Right, well, that matter seems to have been concluded now. So we've got, Avatar has presented the two reports, item 18 and 19 on our agenda together. Shall we note those reports with thanks?
Sorry, Chairman, I think we note the report and also take a special note of all the recommendations that Grant Thornton have made in their report. There are 5 or 6 recommendations, 1 or 2 that we've spoken about, including highways and the way that contract is managed, as well as about the member interests.
You're right to draw our attention to the recommendations. Shall we include those recommendations in our thanks and agree that those should be adopted? All in favour?
No, I didn't think we ought to note the report. Right. Yeah, and me.
Right, I beg your pardon.
What do we normally do? Because you get a report, it's got recommendations, and we note it. We don't say we note it and you've got to do something about all the recommendations. We seem to be steering away from what we would normally do.
Well, I suggest that we note the report, including recommendations. If we note the report, or shall we say we accept? Then we accept the recommendations. So shall we accept Grant Thornton's report on both, but accept these 2 reports which have been presented together?
I will second that, Chairman. It is accepting the report and all the recommendations that are included in it.
Well, I've got a counter proposal that we note the report. I don't know if you want to.
Note or accept, I think. It's either one word or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm making a proposal, Chairman. I don't know if there's a seconder that we accept the report.
Right. All those in favour that we accept the report? Right, so now. Right, we've come to a unanimous conclusion, which I thank you all. And in particular, I thank Mary and Avatar for the number of comprehensive reports they have.
There's 19. We've done that. Right.
But Avatar presented the 2 reports together, so we've accepted the 2 in the spirit in which he presented them. Right. We now have the note the date and time of the next meeting, and hopefully we'll all be able to attend. We now resolve that in accordance with the provisions of section of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act and other sections, we exclude the press and public from the remaining deliberations of our meeting. Shall we so agree? All in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, we, yeah, we know, Barry has already, I think.
Demonstrate.